Course 2, we are on lesson 38, and we are going to be looking at something that's kind of a little bit more fun, I think, as far as math is concerned. Instead of adding or subtracting, multiplying or dividing, we're going to do some interpreting graphs. In other words, we want to know some things about what this graph is telling us. So, to start off right away, example number 1, it gives you a adventure tire sales chart. And it says refer to the pictorial graph or pictograph below, answer the question. So A, right away, tells us Adventure sold about how many tires in March. Okay, well, one thing to note that it says is one tire in the chart equals 100 sold. Okay, so if we look at March, our March sales, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. Okay, so if I say 5 times 100, well, that equals 500, and then a half of 100 is 50. So I would have to conclude that there were 550 tires sold in March. Pretty easy to see. All right, let's look at February. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which means 6 times 100. That gives us 600, right? So we know that there's 600 sold here, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, we know that's worth 400 because each tire is worth 1. So kind of tells us something about our sales. All right. So obviously, which one was the highest selling month? Well, February was. We sold 600, then March, then January. Why do you think that January is the lowest in sales? Just an idea. What happens in the end of December? Well, December 25th, you have Christmas, right? And Christmas, usually you spend a lot of dollars. Got to put a star up there. And so people don't have a lot of money. And guess what happens? They don't spend money in January. Usually January you recover, okay? And so because of that, in most businesses, most cases, you will have the lowest sales in January. Notice February picks up quite a bit. March, pretty sustaining month as well. Let's look at question B in this example as well. It says about how many tires were sold in the first 3 months of the year. Well, we did all the addition here. Okay, 400 plus 600 is 1,000 plus the 15, or excuse me, the 550, which would equal 1,550 tires. All right, pretty easy to interpret that graph. Turn the page. You're going to see another graph, and I'm not going to try to necessarily draw it out. I'm just going to draw kind of a picture of what these kinds of graphs look like. And I want you to note something about this. This graph is referred to as a histogram, even though your text doesn't call it that. But a histogram has these bars that are not connected, okay? But that means something as far as the values, okay? And there's something on this side, and then there's something on this side that it also means, okay? So there's two things to consider, and then whatever these bars indicate can tell us some information that's much needed, okay? So for instance, the graph here that is talked about in number 2, a histogram, or maybe a simple other word would be a bar graph, okay, which you see these bars. And it says this, A says, about how many cans were collected by students in room 14? Well, down here we have room 12, room 14, room 16, 18, right? And I know these aren't representative of what they are. But if you look at room 14, it's the second bar, so you're looking at this one, okay? And in room 14, on the scale there, it has right in line with it, it's got 8,000. So what that tells you is that room 14 collected 8,000 cans, right? So somebody was counting them, somebody was keeping track, and we know that they collected 8,000 cans. They weren't the highest collector. Look at number 16. Students in room 16 collected about as many cans as what other two classrooms combined? Well, 16 was right at, let's call this 16. Okay, draw the line over here. If 10,000 is here and 8,000 is here, that means it was at 9,000. Well, what two were about the same? Well, 12 and 18 are about the same because classroom 12 looks like they got close to about 5,000, and then 18 just got to 4,000, and that's 9,000. So you can see how to derive each of these answers in that way. Okay, look at example 3. Example 3, something a little bit different. This graph is kind of a what we call a line graph, and you'll notice that it has different stage points. Okay, and it's kind of like a grid, right? You see that? Can't draw a straight line. Anyway, and so from every period, it's going to go up into a certain direction, and then I'm going to try to do it the same that they do. Okay, and on, right? So if it was going to keep going, anyway, don't want to add up there, something like that. Okay, so basically it's going to graph bowling scores. Okay, why do we want to chart our achievements? All right, so if I have grades to give out, not bowling scores, but I have grades, and let's say that this is a worth an 85% right here. Okay, let's call this 85, and this is 90, and then this is 80, and this is 75. I can tell by putting these charts on here an average. Okay, so if I have this is 85, this is 90, let's say 90 or 80, let's go 89. This one's back down to 85. This one's up to, let's say, 89 again. And this one crosses over to 91. I can add all these up, divide by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I can come up with my average. So it's these kinds of things that we're hopefully seeing. And we can also see that the general trend of this guy's scores went from the lowest point, and he went up for 2 scores, went down, and then went back up and is continuing to go up. So his trend is in a positive direction. If I had a student whose trend was this direction, right, I'm calling his parents and saying we need to have a meeting because his grades are getting closer and closer to F, which is failing. I don't want that. Or maybe his grades are getting to C minuses, and I don't want that because that's below average. All right. So just examples of what to do. And I'm not going to answer the questions because they're really easy. You can see that. One more graph that I want to show you. And way to demonstrate this is a pie chart. And you've seen this before. Okay. So there's the pie chart, and it gives a couple of values where this is equal to 4 hours, this is equal to 8 hours, and this is 12 hours. Obviously 4 plus 8, so you get 12 on this side and 12 on this side, which equals 24 total hours, right? And so you're just answering questions based on a pie chart, and they do such a nice job of, coloring them in all different shades or whatever. So you've got some nice ways to distinguish between the charts and what they bring. Okay, so that's fine, and you can see easily that there was 12 hours spent doing something. Obviously, it says at home. There were 4 hours that were elsewhere, and then 8 hours of the day were at school. Well, what does that tell you? It tells you where you're spending your time, what you're doing with your time, and then of the 12 hours that are at home, I would say that probably 8 of those are sleeping, right? So your free time, maybe 4 hours elsewhere, church, family, store, I don't know, but really you only have a little bit of time to yourself. Anyway, those are the kinds of examples they're giving today in this lesson. All right. Hopefully you can do well answering the questions. It's really easy math. And if you have questions, just let me know.